2000, early 2000s?
Yeah, so actually, the very first version of Daylight was 2001, and then in
Wow.
2002, we were convinced to sell it as a product. That initially was just our thing, and we were
Yeah.
showcasing it as technology. Like, look, we can do stuff. Hire us to do custom work. Um, and
That sounds actually very similar to what we do. Like as an agency, we sell WordPress plugins, right? We don't sell a
right,
lot of WordPress plugins, but we can showcase. Hopefully that'll change.
right,
But we showcase, hey, we can build plugins. We can
right.
do almost anything with WordPress. Do what we call build bootstrapping, which is kind of financing it ourselves and
Yeah.
building it from the ground up, right?
Yeah, 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 and it's worked out. It's been
Yeah.
there've been ups and downs, and hopefully I can share with people the lessons I've learned, so they can hopefully avoid some of
Yes.
those pitfalls. But yeah, it's been a interesting journey. So to finish that thread there,
Mhm.
Daylight became a product on-prem, license based, and then eventually we migrated it to the cloud.
So that's what would we say the biggest lesson is, if we could reiterate that from your microservices, if we could boil it all down into a statement, what would that be?
Eliminate waste.
Eliminate waste.
Yeah. When you feel that process is taking over, there's quote unquote too much process. That should be a yellow flag, not a red flag, because maybe in some cases you actually need that, but that
Yeah.
should be a yellow flag for you to consider. Well, how can I not have this, or how can I eliminate this? Is it wasteful? I think that for a company like us, it's a little, we got to be careful because again, there's a couple of issues here. Number one is the cost of running these things, right? Although this DeepSeek thing seems to have rattled that
Yeah.
particular thing, right? And then there's the other one is the liability for the hallucinations,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to understand, okay, well, how are people like what people are doing right now is they just have like a disclaimer somewhere which says, don't trust this.
But that's not always great for a business application, right?
Exactly. So,
Hi, I'm Matt Levenhagen, founder of Unified Web Design, Unified Plugins, and your host of the Builders Podcast. Here on the Builders, our goal is to uncover the first principles behind building businesses, products, and services. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you're listening. And if you find value in our content, a like, share, or review is always appreciated. Let's dive in and explore the roots of innovation and progress together. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another The Builders. Today, we are joined by AJ. Now, AJ is the CEO of Marketcircle, Inc., makers of the Daylite app. Welcome to the show, AJ.
thank you for having me on. Glad to be here.
So we're going to talk about mainly around, the Daylite app and how you built that and everything. And we're actually probably going to be talking about the good and the bad, the ugly, the pros and cons of microservices and the lessons you've learned around that,
Right.
and
Right.
a few other items I'm sure along the way. Before we dig into the meat of it, if you want to kind of give us a little bit of your background, your story, how related to how you ended up doing what you're doing today. What's your origin story?
All right. Okay. Well, I was actually born in the Congo.
Wow,
Yeah, in
that's a
in
new
the Heart
one.
of Darkness. You probably read that book, The Heart of Darkness. That's where I was born.
Wow.
If you watch the movie Hotel Rwanda, where all the refugees go, that's the city I was born
Okay.
in. And we came here to Canada as refugees in 1974. And life happened. Went back for a little while. Came back in '82. And then
Where,
I've been here.
why were you in the Congo to begin with? I mean, is
So
that
my parents. So my dad was born in Uganda. My mom was born in Kenya. So my great grandfather emigrated from India to East Africa, however many years ago, and so So
Fascinating.
we were there, and I was
Yeah.
born as a result of being there.
Wild.
So that's why I come from the Congo. And then in 1974, they kind of kicked us out. In 1972, the Uganda kicked out all the South Asians, and then in 1974, the Congo, which was called Zaire back then, followed suit and kicked us out. And so we came here to
Jeez.
Canada as refugees.
Well, and hopefully they welcomed you with open arms, and they won't be kicking you out anytime soon. I think you're in a good place.
You never know. You never know. They might
That's
kick us
true.
out again, and if they do, we'll survive. And move on.
I don't
Yeah, I know.
think that's going to happen. I think you're in a good place though. And wow. So now you're in Canada, and what's the next
What's
part
the
of
next
the story?
step? So here I went to school. Had to figure things out. My father passed away when we got here in 1974. So he died of a heart attack, probably from the stress.
Right.
And so it was me, my mom, and my two sisters, and we had to sort it out. And so one thing led to another. Went to school, went to university actually, and I did terrible. Then I went to college. So I don't know what in the U.S. We call it college, but that's one level below university. Over here, our university equals your college. That's the term, right?
I feel like this. It's the same thing here. I don't know.
Yeah, college,
University,
community
college.
Actually, community college is probably
Community college.
right.
Okay. Yeah.
So I went there, and the difference there is that at university it's all a lot of theory. At community college, it's like hands-on.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay, that
Right.
makes sense.
So
Yep.
so that hands-on theory versus hands-on was a big deal for me. Like I learned by doing kind of thing. So I did that, and in that process, I realized technology and software technology was where I wanted to be, and I learned hardware. I didn't learn software. Then when I came out, I discovered Next computers and the Mach operating system and object-oriented programming, and I wanted to be in there. And I kind of did one thing to one thing led to another. Worked at various companies where I got my experience building software, and then finally in 1999 I took the plunge and launched my own company. At the time we were a .com. Went to market. Failed miserably. Well, we didn't fail. I got to all the major VCs in the Valley, but then I got there at the wrong time because in May of 2020 when I got in May of 2000 when I got to the big VCs, by going from one smaller VC to a larger one to large, and convincing them of the original idea that was Marketcircle. I got there when the bubble burst, and I didn't get to finish my story. I didn't even get my 15 minutes. I was supposed to. Then I got 1 minute, and then even that I didn't get, and I was booted out. And so that was my first pivot, where we came back. Do we close the company now, or what do we do? And we pivoted into consulting. Doing the consulting stuff, I needed something to help organize me in the sales process, and getting customers and etc. And that's where Daylite was born. So Daylite was born out of necessity for myself, and our small team. We were 3-4 people back then, and
so
and
this
it
is
evolved.
so Daylite became a thing pretty early, like 2000, early 2000s.
Yeah. So actually, the very first version of Daylite was 2001. And then in 2002, we were convinced to sell it as a product. Initially, it was just our thing, and we were showcasing it as technology. Like, look, we can do stuff. Hire us to do custom work.
That sounds actually very similar to what we do. Like as an agency, we sell WordPress plugins, right? We don't sell a lot of WordPress plugins, but we can showcase. Hopefully that'll change. But we showcase, hey, we can build plugins. We can do almost anything with WordPress. So
right.
Yeah.
right. And so basically it was the same idea, and then we were convinced to sell it as a product. So we converted to a product, and we had to do consulting for until 2006, 2007, because at that time the sales were
Sure.
it was not huge numbers, no VCs, all bootstrapped, right? So we're doing consulting, building the product.
So you kind of gave up on the whole VC thing.
Yeah. Well, that was at the time I tried to raise money again, but they were just not interested in me. So I don't know.
You're gonna do it yourself.
I think I'm a decent guy, But anyways, it didn't work out, for better or for worse. Probably for better.
Why do you say that? Why do you say probably for better?
I think I had a lot of growing up to do, right? And had I been in the in the sharks pool, I may have not survived.
Oh, you might have been, eaten by the sharks. Yeah, right. Okay, gotcha.
Right. So I had to do a bit of learning because I had no example. I worked co-ops. I worked in some small companies. I had very little leadership training, management training, or I had none actually.
Yeah.
So I dove in and just learn as you go.
Yeah.
And of course, I made a lot of mistakes.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. So you you're self-aware of what your capabilities are and what you should or should not be doing.
I wish I had found somebody that would have mentored me or whatever, but I didn't, and I had to kind of.
Well, I mean, it's probably true for a lot of businesses starting out, and not everybody is connected. Not everybody knows somebody.
Yeah,
you still want to build something, but then you do what we call bootstrapping, which is kind of financing it ourselves and building it from the ground up, right?
Yeah. And it's worked out. It's been there've been ups and downs, and hopefully I can share with people the lessons I've learned so they can hopefully avoid some of those pitfalls. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey. So to finish that thread there, Daylite became a product on-prem, license-based, and then eventually we migrated it to the cloud. And we are where we are today because of those various pivots.
So when did you migrate to the cloud? When did the cloud and explain to the people that don't know what the difference between cloud and
so on-premise is the customer has their own server. We install the server portion of our application on that machine, and then they connect to it locally on their own network. So that was the on-prem kind of solution. And then, we had Daylite, the application that you kind of see. Well, it's evolved a lot since then, right? But the decision was, okay, we see the writing on the wall that the on-prem server stuff is just going to, it doesn't make sense because who wants to manage all that stuff? It's a pain in the butt, right?
Right.
Backups and, power outages and all this kind of stuff, theft. Right, we've had a lot of customers where their servers just got stolen. Well, where was your server? Well, it was near the door. Like, what do you mean it was near the door?
That sounds like it was common. People
we've dealt with. So because we have the offline, we sync all the data to your offline, your laptop or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. We're able to recover this data by converting the offline into the server. Right. Because we have the core of not necessarily all the data, but so we've done a lot of those conversions because customers' servers were getting stolen.
That's so weird.
It is. Like this generation is like, what do you mean? It's
like just walking off with your servers.
Yeah, those floppy disks. So that's we've done a lot of that.
Yeah.
And then so you were asking about the transition to cloud, right? So in about 2012, I saw the writing on the wall. We had some ideas. 2013, we tried. It failed because it wouldn't scale properly. So we kind of had to rejigger some of our technology. 2014 is when wheels started to turn. 2015 is when we we came out. Now, what happened was, speaking of VCs, in 2014, I believe it was. So I was, again, always open to, let's say, maybe I can find some VC that not only would give me some money, but also provide some mentorship, right? Because
Right.
I don't know what I don't know, right? And in that process, I found this one gentleman that was, really interesting. So I happened to go to San Francisco for Macworld, and he's in San Francisco. He says, "Hey, why don't you come by the office?" And so I went by the office, and he says, "Sit down." He says, "I'm not going to invest in your company." I go, "Okay,
Why am I here?
right?" And he goes, because there are many carcasses on the road that you're taking, which is converting a on-prem license-based business to cloud. And I'm worried the strategy that you're taking will kill your company, right?
Okay.
And I was, okay, that's well, so super appreciative that he just told it like
It's up front, yeah.
Yeah, it was up front, told me straight up. It took the time. Like, he invited me. He didn't have to take the time. He could have just said, no, I'm not interested, right? But he took the time to sit me down and tell me this, that, we've seen other companies exactly where you're at, and, 95% are carcasses on the road. Right?
Just
So
because that transition's difficult.
it's very difficult.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult transition because people are not used to paying, monthly thing.
Oh, that way, yeah.
And as well as relinquishing their data, they feel they're relinquishing their data and so forth. So it was a difficult transition at the time, because that's a type of customer we attracted. That was a product we had, right? So that led me to do the transition slowly, as opposed to a big bang, which what some companies were doing, right? That are no longer companies; they're dead now.
Yeah.
So I took that. So then between 2015 until 2018 is when we gradually, moved our customers over. And finally in 2018, we said no more self-serve. We called it self-serve, no more self-serve.
You were probably at that point, you had enough people over, you felt comfortable financially and everything that if you did lose a few, it would be all right.
Yeah. And we've had people come to us, like we've had, we had a migrator tool to move your, on-prem data to the cloud. And, until we just shut down that service, that's six years later. In 2024, we shut down that service. But people were still migrating.
Really?
Yeah. 6 years later.
Wow.
So they are laggards. They are laggards. But here we are. So now we no longer offer that. We're just purely cloud-backed native app.
You've made it.
Yeah.
That's great. So within that, it's amazing. First of all, it strikes me like how amazing it is to have a product like this that has such a history, and you've been there the whole time. Yeah. Like I know just taking my agency, like we've been in business, we're in our 7th year, and just being part of this story, this history of this small little agency we got. But even products and stuff like that, it's just like there's so many teams and churn and different people that have been involved, and ups and downs, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it's amazing to live that and to have it.
It's tumultuous. Like there's lots of changes happening. Look what's happening in the whole AI space. Right. But you have to appreciate the environment that you're in and roll with it. Right?
Yeah.
Right. And,
well, this is clearly a passion of yours at this point, or maybe it always has been. You haven't thought about doing.
For me, it's the small business. Like I fundamentally believe in small business. I believe that small business is what moves society forward. Every big business started as a small business, right? I believe that it provides a better quality of life when done properly to individuals that that want to go down that route. It provides employment. It's a noble thing to.
Is that what drives you?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. That's what drives me, and that's why our software is geared towards small businesses and sole proprietors, and so we cater to companies 1 to 100 in size. We don't do the enterprise. We don't do 500-person companies. Our software is for that kind of individual, the ambitious person that wants to, they have a business. Maybe it's a sole proprietorship. Maybe it's mostly services, right? Like lawyers and real estate and consultants, etc. And they're teams of 5, they're teams of 10, they're teams of 15.
Is that something that happened organically, or is it something more intentional? Like you just figured out? How did you figure out that was your sweet spot?
Well, I've always believed in that kind of thing, and I kind of morphed the software to address it. And there were many times where it was easy for me to go upstream, but I resisted. Because I'm not interested,
That's not your interest.
Business, it's not my thing, right? Like that doesn't wake me up.
You want to help the smaller businesses.
I fundamentally believe that, and and I built the software not as a CRM or whatever. I built the software to help small businesses grow. That's in here, and then that process, you have to get customers, and therefore part of that is a good CRM. So we're known because that part of our product is strong, right? But that's a necessity for growing a small business, right? Like making a small business work. You need the customers, you need to get the deals, and then you got to deliver on those deals. So we address those two things.
So before we, I'm really focused on getting us to a point of talking about microservices because I'm very interested in that. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit more about the software. I'm curious, like exactly what are you mentioned CRM.
Yeah.
What do you all do, and how has that evolved?
So what we did, or what we do, is we're a productivity app. So calendar, contacts, tasks, email, etc. And then on top of that, we have this idea of getting new business, which is opportunities and sales, right? And then the deliver on your promises part, which is projects, right? Projects again. So it's like think of it as a pyramid. We call it the productivity pyramid. At the bottom are little things like task, calendar, blah, 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 right? In the middle is people. You can't do anything without people, either yourself and employees or customers, right? Like that's another human being on the other side, right? And then there's the two things at the top, which is get new business and deliver on your promises. So that's kind of like our thing. That's been my vision. It's taken me many years to kind of make those pieces of the puzzle, and it's evolving. Like for example, how we do meetings has evolved from what it was before, and we have to adapt and so forth, right? So
okay, so it's kind of almost like an all-in-one kind of.
Yeah, I hesitate to say all-in-one because we don't do things like accounting, right? But it is fundamentally like we feel we have the necessary pieces for you to be able to. Yeah, actually, that's one of the things that customers tell us, is that we like the fact that there's all this stuff in one place, because I don't have to bounce around different applications, and the information is in different silos, etc. So that is the what customers say about what they like.
Are there things like, do you integrate with other things? Do you have an API
Yeah, we have an API. We integrate well with Zapier or Zapier, however you say that. So we have a REST API, and we slowly add more and more to that API, and even on the client side, we had a plugin API, which we're not promoting as much anymore. We'd rather you talk to the REST API using OAuth and so forth, because again, there's more and more restrictions on the client side for security reasons, right? So we promote more the REST API over the plugin API.
It's the way to do it. Love it. So we got a good understanding of what this app does.
Yeah.
So tell us the story of microservices. I'm very
All right.
interested to hear this.
So, when we remember, I told you we tried in 2013, and we fell based on the fact that it wasn't going to scale. Our previous architecture was just not going to scale.
Yeah.
And so it was a pretty bad, we have another product called Billings that we're not really focused on. We're focused on Daylite. So that was our kind of it's a smaller app. So we were able to kind of test the waters with that particular app, and we fell on our faces big time. It just wouldn't scale.
Right. Just trying to scale it in what way?
What would happen in the past is you would have a customer, they'd have their server, and they'd have 5-10 users on that one server, and do this thing, it's no problem. But now we're talking hundreds of people, thousands of people on hitting a few servers, and the architecture, which was a pure client server architecture at the time, just wouldn't handle it.
Okay.
Right. We had burning servers, and we
servers.
Yeah,
people are stealing them. They're going up in flames.
Yeah, effectively they were going up in flames, waking us up at all ungodly hours. So anyways, we had to re-architect our system.
Right. And
in looking at options at the time, the hot thing was microservices. It sounded great. You build a services one unit of thing, it can be on its own. If that goes down, it doesn't bring down the rest of the system.
Okay. So it kind of silos them.
Yeah. So it sounded great. I drank the Kool-Aid, right? You can imagine, you can see me on the sideline doing that big Gatorade thing.
Everyone else is doing it.
Yeah. Right. So our engineers kind of pitched it to me we should go this way, and I was like, man, that sounds great, right? I think that's the right way to go, right? So ultimate decision came to me, and I green lighted it, and we set out to build.
So microservices they're smaller units of a larger ecosystem or whatever, and those are charged separately, or how does that affect the customer? Excuse the interruption, but I'd like to take a quick moment to thank the sponsors of the Builders Podcast, Unified Web Design and Unified Plugins. At Unified Web Design, we specialize in crafting custom websites and providing comprehensive design and development solutions to help businesses build a strong online presence. Unified Plugins offers a suite of WordPress tools designed to help you create beautiful websites, enhance functionality, and drive conversions. Explore how these services can elevate your digital projects by visiting unifiedwebdesign.com and unifiedplugins.com. Now back to our program. So the customer, it's completely transparent to the customer. Okay. It's just stuff that we have, we sync. So sync is a big operation. It has to be fast, it has to be fully available, it has to be concurrent and fault tolerant, right? Okay. And then we have the API, which is another microservice, and then we have gotcha. So we're talking more about the architecture of or how things are built. Okay. Yeah, and so we had 20 or so microservices that we built up to, and so and we went, when I said we drank the Kool-Aid, because every microservice, if it needed persistence, had its own database, right? And its API. And further, if this particular thing was best done in a language, we chose that language, right? Oh, wow. So you have different languages. Yeah. Okay. Like I told you, we drank the Kool-Aid. Awesome. So we did this, quote unquote, the right way. Okay. And what happened over time is that, so we're not a large team. We're not hundreds of people. Over time, it just became just keeping all the microservices up to date with, Dependabot. I have Dependabot PTSD, by the way.
So you know what dependabot is?
I don't think I'm familiar with it.
So
No.
dependabot is, you have a repo, you put dependabot on the repo, and it basically opens PRs for dependency updates, right? So
Oh.
for
Oh,
security
okay.
reasons, so
Right.
so any repo now, each one of those microservices have its own repo
Right. Oh,
because
good.
different languages,
Yeah, right.
right? And so yeah, I mean, some of them shared the language, not all. We had basically three languages. And so, whenever I go into one of these repos and I look at it, and it's like, man, there's 17 PRs opened up by dependabot, right? And then you have to test these things, and so
Sure.
just keeping the dependencies of the various repos up to date
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
was a problem, right? So I definitely don't recommend
So,
this
so
for
somebody that's not familiar with this kind of technical jargon we're getting into, is like
yeah,
dependencies, and so it's basically it's going out and finding patches or packages or things
yeah,
to keep that particular unit, that
up to date.
microservice up to date and security and fixed and
Yeah.
all that, right? I mean, it's in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
basically what it does. And there's some ecosystems have there's a lot of action. There's a lot of things changing, and so forth. So, and then there's some that are major changes that require you to refactor your code. Like, for example, a major version of a framework that, you go from 3 to 4. It's like
Sure.
you got to do some
So now instead
rewriting.
of just one piece of software, you got like all these different
Right.
dozens of microservices that
Right.
are all doing this thing on us with a small team.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, even like WordPress, 95% of what we do is WordPress.
Right.
It's changing a little bit, maybe 95% now, but
Yeah.
WordPress has constantly got, there's updates, small updates,
Right.
patches, all this just to keep the site. And you have to have a good routine to keep the website up to date,
Exactly.
or you're going to start taking on technical debt you don't want to take
Right.
on.
Right.
But now you're doing it. Just seems magnified now. So this sounds like it's going to be one of the big lessons from this.
Yeah. The real lesson there is don't introduce waste into your system, right? Because the fact that you have to do so many updates
Yeah.
all over, you're repeating the same work sometimes. It's not. It's waste,
Yeah.
right? It's
Where if
ultimately
it was all together, you test it one time.
right. So you test it one time, you have your weekly updates for all your dependencies, you keep it up to date. But what happens is, you're focused on this one feature with this one microservice, the others are kind of neglected until you get
Sure.
to it, and now you've gone 3 months without updating some of them. They've been working. It's not that they haven't been working, right? But you know,
Yeah.
so
Now
so
I'm thinking I keep like for some reason I keep like connected to what I do. Like updating plugins, and that one
right,
plugin that's being neglected because somebody just doesn't have the license for it or something, and keeps
right,
getting there. Or you have like dozens or hundreds of sites,
right,
and you have to figure out how to those are being ignored because you're
right,
focusing on these, or you got new initiatives that you're.
right.
It's like
Right.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
so this is part of life, right? In the tech space, there's always going to be change and movement and so
yeah.
forth. I don't even want to use the word tech debt because it's just fact of life, right?
Right.
If we I can go into tech debt and I have PTSD about that too.
Right.
But we can go there if you want
That's-
as to why I refuse to use the term now, and I think it's a bad word.
yeah.
Yeah,
Just because that's just the state of things.
I think it's the state of things. It can put you into this frame where you say, okay, let me pay off the tech debt, then I'll innovate.
Oh,
You cannot do that because
right.
the world is passing you by,
Right.
right? And you will always have, it's like stuff we wrote 2 years ago is already dead,
Yes.
right? And I'm not going to keep rewriting that because the underlying stuff keeps changing. It's working. There's no security issues. It's just not up to date, so to speak, right? So it's not really tech debt. It's like you got it's just cleanup. It's just gardening,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's
It's just gardening.
continuous. maintaining of that
So
code.
so the real thing that you want to avoid with this idea of tech debt is that, hey, I got to pay it off first before I can move forward.
But it should be two
fell into
things
that
happening
trap.
at the
We
same
fell into
time.
that trap, and then you can't innovate.
Right.
And you can't keep up.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I
Yeah.
get kind of connecting what we do. Like
Yeah.
there's an agency this past year we started doing work for, and one of the not really pitch, but what they said their pain point was the fact that they had hundreds of sites they're trying to maintain.
Yeah.
And it's not they're getting out of date, and their team is spending more time just trying to maintain these sites than able to do new things.
Right.
To build the new sites and build the new features, or do go get new customers, I guess. But that's why they brought us in, so we could handle their offloading that stuff, so they can focus on that other things. But it's both things can happen at the same time. You maintain what you got.
You have to in our industry. You just have to.
Yeah.
You have to figure out how to do that one way or another.
Makes a lot of sense. I like how you look at it.
Waste. You eliminate things that are wasteful. Like that's what we're doing by amalgamating a bunch of microservices, right? And this way you can kind of your velocity can increase.
Right. So, okay. So do we get microservices? I think we got a little sidetrack.
Yeah, we got a little sidetrack.
Back to
the microservices. So in any case, so the next thing that you got to do when you have these microservices is you go, well, so we have APIs that, you have a microservice, it's got a REST API, you talk to each other via APIs. But then what happens is you got to coordinate the fact that this microservice has a new API and this other one is using the old API. So you got to now, update both of them.
Wow. This is stressing me out.
So what do you do? What do you do to solve that problem? You introduce a message bus.
Oh. Okay.
So we have Kafka, right? So you talk to the message bus and you drop stuff in the message bus that goes to that microservice, and it's a JSON, it's a JSON packet, and you can version these things and so forth, right? So now you got to manage all these microservices, but then you got to manage the bus between these microservices, right? That's what happens. That's a necessity of trying to build loosely coupled microservices as opposed to tightly coupled. Because if they're tightly coupled, then they're not really microservices because you got to deploy them together.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. And
then there's always deadlines, and when these deadlines, you take shortcuts. Right. And so now the shortcuts, you got to deal with the shortcuts later.
Great.
Right. So I'm tell me if I'm going too far. So
no, it's great. I'm just, it just keeps getting worse.
So hopefully I don't paint ourselves as being totally incompetent, but
no, this is the kind of the average or the normal path for many of us, entrepreneurs and businesses and products and services. Yeah. You got to learn these lessons, and that's as long as you're learning, you learn from all this.
Yeah,
it's good.
That's right. You got to learn and move on, right? So so the next thing so now think about this, right? So we have these microservices, you have the bus, and you have databases. So we have lots of databases, right? You got to keep all those databases updated as well, right? Various instances. We use Postgres, so Postgres, Elasticsearch, and S3. S3 for certain things, Elasticsearch for what it's good at, and Postgres for the rest. And so now you go, okay, fine. So I have all these microservices, I have the bus, I have the databases. I can do this, I can handle this. But I need, environments. As I'm developing new features, I can't develop them in production because, so what do? You bring in Kubernetes. Because you can then spin up whole environments. You templatize your environment, right? With Helm charts and those kinds of things, and then you say, okay, I want a new instance of this cluster of these microservices so that I can do what I need to do without breaking production, right? So you bring in Kubernetes. So now I have all these different microservices, these different languages. You have the bus, and you have Kubernetes, and the databases, of course.
Yes.
Right? So you're feeling my pain, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Yes. I'm
So all
contextualizing it with things we also deal with, like, trying to have the stagings and keeping that all in sync, and
Right,
WordPress as like in WordPress, just using that as an example. I mean, there's the database. There's no way to really keep it in sync with the staging. There's no.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
so
just have a
there's
copy, really. You
yeah.
make a production copy, or what we call a staging copy, or something like that.
But all of this you start to have to maintain, and you have to keep track of what's the flow and when things get updated and how they get the testings in there.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that microservices is wrong in all cases. Like if you have a large team of like 500 developers or whatnot, that's probably makes sense, because you have teams. You have enough people to kind of move the machinery along, right? But when you're, let's say, less than 100, I don't think microservice is a good idea, right? Unless you have like such a crazy problem that you have to run this one thing in Rust and everything else is in Rails
or does the amount of microservices matter too? I mean, if you have dozens, 3 versus dozens.
Yeah. You want to keep it, if like ultimately we won't be able to get rid of all of them into one. We'll probably end up with 4, right? But that's going to be a lot better than what we had.
Sure.
Right. So that's like and all of this is introducing waste into the system, because you need so much energy to just admin the system, really, right?
Yeah.
And so now where is the innovation coming? And when you do have to add a feature, you got to there's so much coordination, so it takes a long time. And you
are not agile. No.
Yeah, we're not agile, and a lot of developers, it gets frustrating because it takes so much time to. I just got to add this one column. Damn it.
Yeah.
Oh, but now we got to move the data. It's in that other database, and we need it over here, so we have to move that data.
Yeah, you got to have all this documented and keep track of all that, all these threads. Yeah,
exactly. There's this. I have to really find the source of this one statement that somebody made. Is like you're increasing the cost of a function call, right? Because you want to do something, and it's really normally it would be a function call. Mm-hmm. Maybe you pass in some data, but now you gotta to accomplish this thing. It's in this other microservice, so you gotta package it. You gotta put it in the message bus. You gotta pick it up on the other side, and then you gotta execute, and then you gotta message back that you're done. So now this function call there's all this stuff in between, right? And so the cost of the function call has just gone up. So
yeah.
So that, I have to find the source of that, because I watched it on a podcast and go, man, that's a good description of that.
Yeah. So how did you, how was the transition? So you have dozens, now you said you have like 4.
We're by end of this month or by end of next week, not this month, end of next week, we should be down to 6.
Okay. So you're still in the process of that.
Yeah.
And that's probably been an effort.
It's been it's been an effort, and the way we've done it is we've done it so that when we need a new feature, and that feature is touching some of the old stuff, we say, okay, well, we need this new feature. We're going to port that service over so that we can do our new feature, right? So it takes a little bit longer right now, but so we're not. It's like those other 2 or 3 services that we have. I think they'll probably be there for a while, because I don't foresee in the next few months of us needing to change that. If it does, then we will. But that's how we're doing it. Okay, we need this new feature. Oh, this feature needs this functionality that's in that microservice. Let's get rid of it and bring it over here. And
I'm feeling like that's a really good lesson in here, and again, that I can kind of apply to what we do too, and when you, how you survived by not just flipping the switch and everyone's now on cloud.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with this. It's
Yeah.
a longer term game. You
Mm-hmm.
figure out what you need to, you make the decisions day by day and feature by feature. And if something's working fine, you don't need to worry about it right now. But like you
Yeah.
said, when something does touch it, okay, now we'll deal with that. And it's just kind of slow. It's not a light switch or something or whatever you want to analogy you want to use.
You got to plan it.
Yeah, you plan it over time, and eventually everything and if something does become a problem, then you deal with it. But
Yeah.
So it's a really good lesson from that.
Yeah. It's like, um, it's like any kind of refactoring, if you think about it, right? You want to refactor even in an existing code base. In one code base, you're refactoring some because whatever you chose to do, and this happens. You made your architectural decision at the time based on the information you had. You didn't think of this new crazy feature that you want to add, and so you got to refactor, right? And it's in the same system. So just forget the microservices, forget all that stuff. You're in the same app, right? In that case, if you have it's a production system and you have customers on it, you need to figure out how to have both of them running so that you can gradually move over rather than big switch and then it explodes on you because you forgot something or you missed something. Test doesn't cover everything, right? And writing tests for everything is
mental. Yeah,
it's wasteful, I think.
Yeah.
Right? You need to just do the right thing. So the whole refactoring process, the mindset, that's basically what we're doing everywhere. We're just we're thinking of the refactoring mindset in a gradual kind of with a gradual approach.
It's interesting. As I'm listening, we're having this conversation, and I'm sometimes conscious of the person that might be listening to this, and I keep wanting to define things as we go, but I've given up at this point. No. Well, I'm like, refactoring. Should we explain what refactoring is?
Basically, rewriting the thing so that you can deal with the new feature, or you can add the new feature that you want to add.
Yeah, no, I love it. No, this is really good. So, okay, so that's what we say the biggest lesson is, if we could reiterate that from your microservices. If we could boil it all down into a statement, what would that be?
Eliminate waste.
Eliminate waste.
Yeah. When you feel that process is taking over, there's quote unquote too much process. That should be a yellow flag, not a red flag, because maybe in some cases you actually need that, but that should be a yellow flag for you to consider. Well, how can I not have this, or how can I eliminate this? Is it wasteful, right?
Yeah.
So there's actually a really good book called "This Is Lean." It's like a 150-page book. I highly recommend it. In fact, I have multiple copies, and I hand it out to people.
Nice.
And what it does is it teaches you about this idea of waste, eliminating waste, bottlenecks, etc. Right? And so when you're thinking it's wasteful, sometimes your instinct will just that seems like a lot of work. Like it just seems so. You might even say that word. It just seems so wasteful, and then that's where you say, okay, how can I eliminate that?
Yeah, always be asking that question. That's a constant thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so awesome. I do have one other little thing I want to talk to you about, and I'll only take a few more minutes.
I'm right here.
We're good. So I'm always curious. Obviously, AI is a big thing now, these last few years.
Right.
How has that impacted Daylite and what you guys are doing? Is it something you are consciously integrating, or was it a mind-blowing moment when you realized what this stuff does and how sparked new ideas, new things you're doing, and how do you see that playing out in the coming years?
So when people ask me, what do you think of AI, or how do you see it, I look at it as in my simple brain, as a new kind of SQL, right? Because really, these LLMs are, at the bare metal, it's like they're predicting the next word based on previous patterns and weights and so forth, right? And they do a good job. Like when you go and ask ChatGPT or any one of these LLMs like a question based on the data that it's been trained on, it's like, whoa, that's pretty good, right? And so to me, it's a new tool that we got to learn how to wield, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I think that for a company like us, it's a little, we got to be careful because again, there's a couple of issues here. Number one is the cost of running these things, right? Although this DeepSeek thing seems to have rattled that particular thing, right? And then there's the other one is the liability for the hallucinations.
Right.
Right. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to understand, okay, well, how are people like what people are doing right now is they just have like a disclaimer somewhere which says, don't trust this.
But that's not always great for a business application, right?
Exactly. So I'm just trying to understand how these companies that have big wallets are dealing with this, because I need to make sure I don't step into the mud here. So I'm keeping a close eye, a very close eye. I'm just watching very carefully. I'm looking at what other companies are doing. Since we are, we're Mac and Apple, we're in the Apple ecosystem. We're watching very carefully what Apple's doing with Apple Intelligence,
what
APIs they give us. And so I think that the next 6 months to a year is going to be really telling as to the direction of where things are going to go and how you can leverage things. Because we know that it's not AGI or artificial general intelligence. It's basically this algorithm for predicting the next word. But how can we use this to, provide value to our customers such that they're willing to pay for it, and then at the same time not blow our brains out on crazy cloud costs that we then have no margin
Of course.
on, right? Like, I mean, if you're looking at the Microsofts and all these things, they're huge capex expenditures right now. They're $100 billion data center and $80 billion here because of the compute power that they need. Spinning up, old nuclear reactors because there's not enough electricity on the grid.
Yeah, it's not cheap unless, I mean, at least up until this past week.
Yeah, so I don't know if I answered your question, but
no, I'm just curious. Yeah, I'm curious if this doesn't sound like you've really implemented a lot into your software yet or your app.
No. I am paying, but I am paying.
But you're paying attention.
One of the things we already leveraged is the writing tools that Apple Intelligence provides. Like we already kind of are leveraging that because we kind of get it for free.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're paying very close attention, and Q3, Q4, probably Q4. I'll probably have to start thinking, okay, well, how am I going to?
Well, I mean, this sounds like it's right in your wheel. Like what kind of your approach to things. You're just not in a rush. Just, you're aware.
Yes,
this thing is happening, and you're looking for opportunities. You're thinking about it in the context of what you do, but you're not, like we got it, like. A lot of companies, I think just like, we got to figure out how we're going to add this to and then suddenly you see chatbots showing up and
and I think in our cases, there are legitimate good uses. I just want to make sure that I don't step in the mud when I implement
Makes sense.
I have some ideas and or I shouldn't say we have some ideas.
Yeah.
And we're, even with those ideas of, okay, well, how am I going to apply that? What's the cost going to be? I got to do some of that math.
So when somebody, they come on board with Daylite, they're going to know that the team behind there is thoughtful. They're not going to do anything dangerous or reckless.
We learned that lesson the hard way when we did in the past some breaking changes or like it disrupted people's businesses because And that is counter to, like, we're saying, hey, we're trying to help you grow your business, but now we've disrupted all your workflow.
Yeah, it's not going to. Yeah, you think about all the services you use and stuff. Like we use ClickUp and stuff. Like they, you don't think about it because you just show up every day and it's just working, and it has to be like. But if it goes down, all our work grinds to a halt because we rely on it so much, us and our partners, and it's just crazy. Well, this is fantastic. So if somebody wants to learn more, or they want to learn more about Daylite or what you guys do, and
so the best way is reach us at daylite.app, daylite.app, and you can also put my full name in LinkedIn, and you'll find me there. I'm not on other social media, but I am on LinkedIn.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask too, where you hang out.
Yeah,
but
so
we'll see on LinkedIn.
You'll see me there.
That's my favorite home away from home.
Right. All right. And they're trying to apply the whole AI thing with the writing stuff at least, and they're changing their algorithms, right? Yeah. So
good or bad, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see how that the TikTok.
There's a lot of testing going on. There's a lot of things, and it'll be interesting. The future will be interesting, regardless.
It's definitely going to be interesting. Like this is the one thing that is great in our industry is that it's never boring.
Yeah, and we get to be front row seats to all this happening.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, AJ. Thanks for sharing your experience and your journey with us. And this was a really good one.
Thanks for having me on, and it was great chatting with you.
All right. Till next time.
Next time.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Builders Podcast. One more quick note about our sponsors. At Unified Web Design, we're passionate about doing better together, partnering with agencies and businesses to deliver exceptional web design, development, and ongoing support. And Unified Plugins offers tools to take your WordPress projects to the next level, helping you build beautiful websites, enhance functionality, and drive more conversions. If you haven't already, subscribe or follow to stay updated on future episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, sharing it with somebody who might benefit helps us grow this amazing community. Until next time, keep building with intention and creativity.